This is one of the most intriguing topics I've covered: new house stories. These tales often involve unsuspecting homeowners discovering something or someone they never expected in their new homes. But before diving into those, let me share an unsettling experience that still lingers in my mind to this day. This happened several years ago, but I still feel uneasy whenever I think about it. The only reason I'm sharing it now is that enough time has passed and I believe it's safe to talk about. My wife and I had just moved from a bustling city to a quieter suburb. With 3 kids, our apartment had become chaotic and cramped. We were thrilled to find a cozy home in a peaceful neighborhood where the neighbors spoke highly of its safety, doors often left unlocked, and all. The house wasn't huge, but it was a major upgrade for us. My wife adored the slightly overgrown garden out back, complete with old statues scattered throughout. Though weathered and a bit eerie, she loved how they added character to the yard. I was indifferent but relieved I wouldn't have to maintain anything, so we left it all as it was. A few days after moving in, I glanced out the window and noticed something odd. One of the angel statues was facing away from the house, while the others were turned toward it. I couldn't recall if it had always been like that, but brushed it off as a minor detail I hadn't paid attention to. The next morning, though, another statue had turned around. This time I was sure something was off. I mentioned it to my wife, but she dismissed it, saying she hadn't noticed anything strange. I thought maybe our son, who loved pranks, was behind it, but he looked genuinely confused when I asked. As unsettling as it was, I decided not to make a big deal out of it, since other pressing matters, like our financial struggles, were weighing heavily on my mind. Then, one evening, my heart nearly stopped when I saw all the statues lined up along the edge of the house, staring back at us. It felt like a scene from a horror movie. Mustering the courage to investigate, I realized the statues were far too heavy for one person to move alone. My wife suggested it might be a prank by neighbors, but the idea of someone targeting a family with kids felt far from harmless. Mustering the courage to investigate, I realized the statues were far too heavy for one person to move alone. My wife suggested it might be a prank by neighbors, but the idea of someone targeting a family with kids felt far from harmless. We called the police, who recommended installing cameras. We couldn't afford them, but said we would. Days passed uneventfully, and I started to feel more at ease, until one weekend when things escalated. I found the words, "Go away," spray painted on our back wall. Furious and terrified, I ran into the garden, shouting threats at whoever had done it, but no one was there. The police came again, but couldn't do much without evidence. We tried to move on, but that night, my wife screamed from the living room. 5 figures wearing white masks stood in the backyard, moving in a strange, jerky dance. Grabbing a knife, I ran outside, yelling, but quickly retreated when I realized I was outnumbered. They vanished into the garden as I locked the door and called the police. The officers arrived but found no one. I finally installed security cameras the next day, and the incidents stopped. To this day, we still live in that house and never got an explanation for what happened. The experience left us shaken, and we've learned to take every precaution to ensure our family's safety.